Okay, so on our last section, we were always given an angle measurement and we were trying to find another side length. Okay, on this section, it says find the missing measurements of the triangle. That means we're only given 2 side lengths here, and I have to figure out this last side length and these 2 inside angles. Okay, so now I'm taking side lengths and I'm using those to figure out what the angle measurement is here. Okay, and I have my SohCahToa off to the side to help us here. So the first thing I want to do, I want to just figure out what this side length BC is going to be. Okay, if I wanted to use SohCahToa, right, we would have to know one of these angle measurements, but we don't, right? So I'm going to pull information that we had learned about last chapter, and we're going to use the Pythagorean theorem here, right? I know my Pythagorean theorem says I can find my hypotenuse if I'm given my other two side lengths on my triangle, right? So I can say for BC, I can say 7 squared plus 5 squared is going to equal BC squared. Okay, from here, right, my 7 squared is 49, plus 25 is equal to BC squared, right, and 49 plus 25 gives me 74 equals BC squared. And to figure out what BC is, I still need to take the square root of both sides, okay? So I'm going to come to my calculator. We're taking the square root, right, that's this button here, of 74. We're going to get 8.6, and I'm going to keep it as 8.6. That's where I'm going to round it to. So I'm going to say BC is equal to 8.6, and I'm going to write this up here. And then label it. Okay, so I'm going to, we have all of our triangles, our side lengths on our triangle here, right? But the 7 and the 5 were given to us. So we know those aren't wrong. If by any chance, right, maybe I made a mistake somewhere finding my hypotenuse. So when I go to find my measurements for angle B and angle C, I'm going to just use the side lengths that were given to me originally. That way I know that my answer, or there's just one less way that my answer will be wrong, right? I want to make sure I have the right steps here. So if I start with B, right, I'm going to start with angle B. Okay, I want to find out the measurement for angle B. If we look at our side lengths, and I just want to use the side lengths that are given to me, right, I'm given this 5 and the 7. The 5 is opposite B, and the 7 is adjacent to B. Okay, so the function that talks about my opposite and my adjacent is going to be my tangent function, right? So I know the tangent of B has to equal 5 over 7. Okay, so this is where it differs from last section. Before, we would have an actual number here. We would have an actual measurement for B, but we don't have that this time. Okay, so in order to go backwards, in order to take a side length and then determine the angle measurement, we're going to use the inverse of this tangent function, right? So that's where I'm going to write tangent to the -1, right? That means the inverse of my tangent. And then I'm going to plug in the 5 over 7. That's going to be equal to my angle B, that measurement of angle B. So when I go to plug that in, right, I can't take the tangent of just B because I don't know what B is, but I can take the inverse tangent of my side lengths, right, my ratio for my side lengths. So if I go to my calculator, to get the inverse here, right, you can see it in blue. Let me try to focus. You can see it in blue right above your normal functions here, right? It's the -1 above those. So I'm going to hit second tangent, right, and then I'm going to plug in the 5 over 7. Okay, and we're told that angle B, I'm going to round this to the first decimal. We're going to say 35.5 degrees. So that's giving me my angle measurement for angle B, 35.5 degrees. I'm going to list that up here as well. Okay. Our last piece of information, right, we have all 3 side lengths. We have 2 angle measurements. I just need to figure out what this angle C is. So there's 2 different strategies you can use. Your first strategy is, again, to use one of your functions here, right? We could take the given side lengths again. We could take the opposite over the adjacent. So we could do, we know the tangent of C has to be 7 over 5, right? Because now that we changed angles, 7 becomes my opposite side, okay? So we know the tangent of C would have to be equal to 7 over 5, right? Which means the inverse tangent of 7 over 5 would have to give me the measurement of angle C. So I can plug that in again, right? I can do the second tangent inverse, right? And now instead of plugging in 5 over 7 like we did before, we're doing 7 over 5 because the place of our angle had changed. So our sides, what they're labeled as, also changed. So we end up angle C is equal to 54, and I'm going to round it to the first one again, so 54.5 when we round. That was our first strategy to find angle C. Okay, our second strategy, I know that all the interior angles of a triangle have to equal 180 degrees. So if I already know, if I found that this angle is 35.5, I can do 180 minus my right angle minus the 35.5 to get angle C, right? And when I do that, if I do 180 minus 90 minus 35.5, I'm still going to end up with the same exact answer. I'm still getting 54.5 degrees. Okay, so this last piece of information, the last angle, you have two options on how to find it. If you feel comfortable using the functions, the cosine, sine, tangent, you guys can use that again, right? You can do the same thing. Or if you just want to do the easy way, shortcut, subtract it all from 180, and then you'll get your 54.5 here. But then we're done with this problem, right? Because I found my missing side length. I found the missing two angles, right? Everything else is given to me. So I was able to complete this entire right triangle, right? Give all of the information that it was asking for. Okay. Number 2 is really similar. Okay, first thing we'd want to do is I would say find your missing side length here, right? The only thing different from question 1 to question 2, right, is now I'm given my hypotenuse. So when I go to find this missing side length AC, right, I'm going to say that AC squared plus 22 squared has to be equal to our hypotenuse, our 39 squared. Okay, before the missing length was our hypotenuse, so we could just do this nice and easy. This time we're kind of filling it in this way. So I'm going to start plugging in, right? 22 squared, 39 squared. So we're saying AC squared plus 484 is equal to 1521, right? 1521 minus 484. We're going to get AC squared is equal to 1037. Okay, again, to figure out AC, you have to take the square root of both of these. So you're going to hit second and then your squared button right here. That's going to give you your square root, 1037. So we're going to find that AC, that missing side length, is 32.2. Okay, and again, I'm going to write this here, 32.2. These were my given side lengths. Okay, so we found a side length. We are just missing our angles in here. Okay, so again, if I want to start with B, I want to try to use maybe the angle or the side lengths that were given to me, just in case I had made a mistake somewhere along the way here. So to find B, I want to use the 22, right? And if I'm talking about B, 22 is going to be my adjacent side. And then 39 is going to be my hypotenuse. So I'm going to go over to SohCahToa. I want to figure out which function uses my adjacent and my hypotenuse. That's going to give me my cosine. Cosine involves both of those. So again, if I said the cosine of B is equal to my adjacent over my hypotenuse, right? I can't plug in just a cosine of B. I need this B. So we're going to take the inverse cosine of 22 over 39. And when we do that, that's going to give me my angle measurement for B. So I'm going to go back to my calculator. We're going to plug in second cosine to get our inverse. And we're going to do 22 divided by 39. So angle B, I'm going to round it to 1 decimal place. We're going to say that angle B is equal to 55.7. Okay, I'll mark it up here. Okay, and again, you have two different strategies to find angle C, right? So my first strategy, I want to use something from SohCahToa. If we're using just the side lengths that were given to us originally, this 22 is now my opposite because we're starting at angle C. So 22 is my opposite, 39 is still my hypotenuse. Going back to SohCahToa, the function that uses my opposite and my hypotenuse is my sine function. So we know the sine of C is equal to my opposite side length, my 22, over 39. Okay, and again, I need to take the inverse of this so that I could actually find the measurement of angle C, right? So we're going to say the inverse of the sine, right, of 22 divided by 39 will give us the angle measurement for angle C. So we're going to plug it in. Second sine to get my inverse, and then 22 divided by 39. Oops. And we're going to get 34.3. So angle C is equal to 34.3 degrees. Okay. Notice inside my parentheses on both of these, I have the same fraction, but I got two different answers because I had two different functions here, right? I used the cosine on one, sine on the other one, okay? So that was our first strategy to find angle C, right? Again, if I did 180 minus 90 minus that angle I had found for B, minus 55.7, I should still end up with this 34.3. So again, if I plug it in, 180 minus 90 minus 55.7, and we still end up with that same answer. We still end up with the 34.3. So either of those options is fine. No matter what, you can use either one of those. You should end up with the same answer. Shouldn't be any different here. Okay, you could always double check your work to make sure you did it correctly. You could do both of these to make sure you have the right answer. But either one of those would be fine to solve out. Okay, and that's all it was looking for in this one. It was just fill in all of those missing measurements. Okay, so for the first section we did last week, we had said we're taking an angle measurement. We're going to use that to find a side length. This week we were given side lengths and we went backwards. So we took side lengths and then found an angle measurement from that. That's what the inverse does. It takes a side length and then gives you your angle. Okay, again, if you have any questions, email me. Let me know, and then we can go from there. All right.